My grandpa was a severe alcoholic. Um, I don't talk a lot about that on this channel. Um, and I mean severe in the sense that it was really bad. He would, um, I remember growing up when I was a kid, and there was always something about he would be running away. They called them benders. And he would run away for 5 days, something like that, and then just drink. Um, I was never privy to seeing any of that, but it would be just a giant mess. I would always hear these sort of stories about that. My mom is old enough now that I think it's okay to talk about this publicly. My family is old enough now, and it was and by the way, if you are family members, I do apologize, but I'm trying to not necessarily normalize the actions of what he went through, but for other people that are going through this, and experiencing a family member that has these kind of issues, and thinking like, I wouldn't be here. So this is I wouldn't be here without my grandpa, um, being the person who he was. Um, he taught me, and these actions taught me that I could be a better person. So thankfully, I had parents that were, if you met them, and my all my family members would probably agree, they were very straight and narrow, very square. Um, as an old-fashioned term, but they were very old-fashioned for their age. And I think largely both of them, they were together at an age. My parents were old when they had me, older, 39. They were together for, I think my mom was 39 when she had me. They were together for already like 20 years, um, like married when I finally came around. I was the youngest. There was a lot of family trauma that happened, and it's still very raw for a lot of people. He passed away. My grandpa passed away 20 years ago. Um, Actually, little longer than that, but that still stings with a lot of us. But I want, because I know that there's some people that listen to this, and I'm not trying to say like, I'm better than anybody else. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is I would not be the person who I am today without having that, and realizing that with good role models, good mentors like my parents, I didn't agree with I don't agree with a lot of things that my parents had done, but there were some things I really agreed with, and one of them was trying to be, in honestly, in the sort of eyes of my parents, I'm not religious anymore, but to be as much of a good citizen, and as they would sort of think about, as Christ-like as possible. I'm not religious, but I understand the principles of that, um, of do unto others as you would do unto yourself or unto me. That is so deeply ingrained in me now. When I saw somebody that was so just deeply destroyed, honestly. And it's, to me, I look now that I'm older and I understand why and what. He's a World War II vet, did the whole thing, saw the whole thing, regardless, and growing up in very rural Ontario, like drinking still a thing. Um, luckily drugs weren't a thing at that moment, but when you see a whole bunch of stuff, like there's two ways that you could take this, right? Like as a young man that sees a whole bunch of stuff, left home, he joined the army at 17, um, which by the way was illegal, but he lied about his age. Uh, Joined the army, went overseas, did all that crap, was missing in action, was shot, or not shot, but had um, shrapnel in his leg, like just seen a whole bunch of crap. And I know what fighting they were part of, as part of their regiment. It was heavy fighting. They were at the front lines the whole way. Um, so there's two ways that you can take this trauma. Often, and it's very difficult. Right? I'm not blaming him at all. Um, but there's two ways you could take it. There's one way that you could take it and use substances to escape. Um, and we all use some substance, right? Maybe it's alcohol. Some of us it's TV. I escape often on TV and electronics, and my work is a big escape for me. But there's another way to do it is is to try to deal with it. Try to be open and try to deal with it. Unfortunately, they were of a generation that was highly frowned upon, right? You weren't a man to deal with that kind of stuff, right? Like you just were not a man. You had to man up. Um, and so you had to often suppress these things. And I can imagine what that was like. Um, like that how I knew him growing up was a heavy, heavy drinker, um, very much an alcoholic, and smoked like a chimney all the time. And he just sat there, couldn't hold a job or anything like that for very much. But so I have that grandparents. That's one set of grandparents, and my grandma was, um, she was a beautiful soul, but in a lot of ways, um, very rough around the edges in a lot of quirky ways. Um, Struggled with a lot of those things herself. She was an orphan when she was a kid for I think she was like 5 or 6 by the time she even found relatives to live with. Um, it was very difficult, right? Like at this time, there was a lot. There was a lot of stuff. There's lots of other things I don't want to talk about, but um, at this moment. And then I had my other parents, my other grandparents on my dad's side that I really never really knew. They were much older. My dad was a hardcore Polish immigrant, and they were hardcore Polish immigrants coming over. Very, very stern people. Um, Work like you would never imagine. The typical immigrant worked extraordinarily hard all of the time, um, but at the same time were very hard and very just very rough, and were hard on all of my dad and all of their siblings. So the long story short with this, and so I never really knew. I didn't know them at all. Maybe I knew them when I was like 3 or 4, but I don't remember. Very not any part of my life. So here's the thing. I am deeply fortunate in the fact that they were part of my life, on both of them, because I understand I live in a time right now where um, I can actually talk about them. So many years ago, if my grandparents didn't immigrate from Poland, they would have been dead. And regardless of whether that they were harsh or not, they would have been dead at the time. And so I'm deeply appreciative of the fact that they were hard people and they were hardy and they did do these things. And I'm more appreciative of my grandpa, first of all, even though he's an alcoholic, but now, and for me to even say that would have been very difficult for him to admit it. I don't think he would ever really admit it. Maybe his last few years he admitted it. Um, but I am deeply appreciative of the fact that I knew him briefly. I was pretty young by the time, he passed away. I think I was in my 20s when my grandma passed away, early 20s. I am more than appreciative to have them in my family because I live in a time where I actually was able to know them and meet them. If this was at any other place, if I still would have lived in Poland, I probably wouldn't exist. My grandparents didn't live in Poland, or they lived there. I wouldn't exist. Um, and then, my if my grandpa didn't do the things that he did, and we paid the price, like our family, I think, is still relatively, it's still raw. This is decades and decades after all of this stuff. It's still raw in our family. We paid the price of when I go overseas now and I meet people that are young, that are happy, um, as happy as one could be. I often think of him, um, and being there, and maybe he didn't do anything, couldn't pull the trigger, any of that kind of stuff, but at least he was there to defend against some of these things. Um, I am very appreciative of all of these experiences. I am just humbled to be able to be part of this world because of the things that they had done, and had done far harder things than I could and ever would do. I am just blown away, honestly. And yes, our family paid a very hefty price of doing this, and it stayed with us for a long time, like deeply stayed with us, for deeply stayed with us. Um, but here's the thing, and this is a good thing with having parents that were just like no other, right? Like in a lot of ways, my gosh, they were so square that it was just like really painful. But at the same time, um, I understand why. I understand what was driving that. I understand everything about it. Um, and I'm deeply thankful for the fact that they were there coaching me through and coaching us through and having open conversations about this stuff as a family, not hiding it, letting people know that this is, somewhat normal, in the sense that it exists, abnormal in the sense that somebody's dealing with their past in a very hard, not so good way. So, if you're going through this, I don't drink anymore, by the way, because of it. I really am. I'm just it's just there's been too many moments. I've seen too many things. The odd time I'll have a small little drink just 'cause, but I really don't drink because of it. I and I think several of my family members are probably feeling the same sort of thing. I don't know, but it's not a positive thing, not especially super positive thing all of the time. But I just want to say, so if you don't know me, I am, a professor and in a business school, um, and I just want to say that if you're going through any of these things, you can make positive changes. And that's one thing I study. I mean, that's probably a central thing I study. I study learning from failure. It's an important part as my central field. And I study, human performance. I think you could sort of see it as that way. Basically, how we get better over time. And I want to, I want to tell you that you can make a positive difference in your own life by simply starting one little step at a time. And the other thing is, if somebody else is screwing up in their life, it's not your fault. I'm so glad that my parents were smart enough. My mom was smart enough. I got a lot of respect for my mom. Um, a lot of respect for my dad. He just dealt with things in a very different way. He would go out into the bush. He would go out into the um, outside, but and go for long, 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 long walks, or just go out in the woods for hours and hours and hours. But I'm just thankful. I'm so thankful that they were there coaching me in their own ways and how to deal with life and saying, around the dinner table, that's not a good way of living. That's hurting yourself and other people. And if you're going through this, and if you're going through these moments, and I just want to say that you can make a small difference in your life. That small difference might be maybe you're having 6, 7 drinks a day. Try going back to 5 and just do that for 3 months and try that. Even go if you're having 6, 7, just go to 6 drinks a day and try doing that for 3 or 4 months. And that's all I ask of you is one little tiny step, one little tiny thing, and give yourself a tremendous amount of forgiveness for everything that you've done and everything that you've experienced. Because you're a good person. You're a wonderful human being, and I want you to remember that. You're not evil for doing any of these things. You just have a lot more experience than many other people, and I want you to remember that. Take care and have a wonderful day.